And we want to get more analysis now on the military aspects of this escalating conflict and turn to Simone Ledeen, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for the Middle East under President Trump and now Managing Director of Maven Defense Solutions. Simone, thank you so much for joining us as we consider that Israel has signaled its strikes on Iran will go on for days, if not longer. Its main objective, of course, eliminating the threat posed by Iran's nuclear program. To what success can they actually, or to what extent can they succeed in that mission if the U.S. is not providing bunker-busting bombs to actually get underground and take out all of those nuclear facilities?
I think we may have the opportunity to see that in the days and weeks ahead. There were many, I think, including your previous guest, who would never have believed that Israel could so effectively decapitate Hezbollah in Lebanon, and yet they have. So I think that this is a topic, and this is an operation that Israel has meticulously planned for quite a while now. And knowing what tools they have in their toolkit, we've learned recently they have boots on the ground. They have operatives on the ground. We saw from their drone strike where they have actually announced that they had drone bases, at least one on the ground in Iran. I think that there are several ways to do this, and I'm looking forward to seeing more Israeli creativity in this operation.
Well, it's interesting. It appears that Israel isn't waiting around for more help to go after these deeper bunkers, actually attacking Fordo today repeatedly. I wonder what your thought is on this. This would be the deepest set of bunkers underneath hundreds of feet of rock. And we until now had heard you could only get down there, if possible, with the Moab, with help from the United States. Can Israel do it on its own?
That's a very interesting question. And I would also turn to some of the statements that have been made by the IAEA in the past, 24 hours about the nature of the damage that so far Israel has inflicted on this base. But I think it's also worth noting that Israel retains a lot of capability that it hasn't used yet. And that's also very interesting. I think they are holding things back. But when you see this huge number of Iranian ballistic missiles that just hit Tel Aviv in the last couple of hours, imagine if those had a nuclear capability, if they'd had a nuclear payload. That, I think the argument sort of makes itself as to why Israel believes this was their nuclear program was an existential threat and why they had to go after it.
Well, as we consider the missiles that were sent in the direction of Israel, the drones as well, obviously a lot of those intercepted by air defenses, not just Israel's own, but also the U.S. engaging on a defensive basis in support of Israel. Simone, what would draw the U.S. into this conflict in an offensive manner? Would it have to involve U.S. service members being put in harm's way?
Based on, thank you for noting. I think it is important to note that so far we have not materially assisted Israel in this operation. We are not dropping bombs on Iran, and there's a lot of chaos, I think, on social media right now where there's some folks who are not making that distinction. But yes, in the past, we've seen historically, and when I was working in the first Trump administration, President Trump cares deeply about, our U.S. personnel, our U.S. civilians, and I would expect that if someone gets killed through one of these sorts of attacks, I think that might change the calculus. But he is still trying to make a deal. He means it when he says it. It's just clear that the Iranian regime is not interested in giving up this nuclear capability or, making any real progress towards de-escalation. They don't want to de-escalate. They want to continue escalating. And again, we've seen that through their just most recent attack against a civilian center in Israel, Tel Aviv.
Simone, you mentioned the drone strikes that hasn't gotten quite as much coverage, and there's been some pretty interesting reporting around this. The Washington Post saying that the Mossad carried this out months in advance, planting these drones inside Iran, not unlike what we saw Ukraine do against Russia. From the creativity department here that you refer to, what else could Israel have up its sleeve? We remember Stuxnet. Could there be a cyber component to this attack?
Absolutely, there could be a cyber component. Israel leads the world in cyber, as many people know. So both offensive cyber and cybersecurity, because also those two go hand in hand. So yeah, absolutely. I think after Stuxnet, Iran, worked hard to upgrade its own capabilities. But yes, we could see a cyber attack. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that. I also think, just from the perspective of the defense, U.S. defense community, a lot of people are pointing to this operation, and specifically what you mentioned, the Mossad drone base inside of Iran, as something that we should be concerned about here in the homeland, where our adversaries who are buying up land around our military bases could have a plan like that in mind in the long term. So something to look for, certainly.
Simone, just finally, what role do China and Russia play going forward in supporting Iran? How critical are the choices they will make here?
Well, I do find it quite interesting that you have not seen either jump to Iran's aid at this point. I think that speaks for itself. I believe you could say that they're trading partners, and certainly several years ago, there was a big fanfare where they signed this agreement between the three of them that they would help each other and coordinate on things, but we don't really see that playing out now that we're down to brass tacks. I find that quite interesting and illuminating also for potential other quote-unquote partners for China and Russia, maybe to keep in mind.
Simone Ledeen, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense in the Trump administration. It's great to have you with us here, now Managing Director of Maven Defense Solutions. Thank you for the insights. Coming up on Balance of Power, we'll be